It is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show on 860 AM WNOV and W293CX 106.5. Wherever you may be listening, however you may be listening, whether on those particular stations, the TuneIn app, the Simple Radio app, the radio tab on the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com website, or anywhere in between. We are live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am your host, Joey Baird. Beside me is my wife, co-host, best friend, and gardening partner,
Holly Baird.
The WisconsinVegetableGardener.com is your destination now, containing almost 1,100 garden videos, long, short format, for your educational entertainment purposes, as well as in-studio video, short and long, full show, as well as segments of this program underneath the radio tab and the highlight tab on the main page of the website. Pear and apple season, whether you're picking them or buying them, or you have a tree. We have a pear tree in the front yard. It's not as predominant this year as it was prolific this year as it was last year because
there's plenty of pears on there.
Yeah, but then not as many as there was last year. So, what do you do with all of these pears and apples that you get? Well, we've got 11 things in which you can do. Some are a little simple, some are simple, and some are a little more difficult to accomplish. But it gives you a very good idea with what you can do with this.
Right. So one thing that's pretty obvious is that you can can them, or you can make things like apple or pear butter. So you can can them into quarters or halves or whatever you choose, and then you have the canned pears.
You must peel them first.
Right, you must peel them first. Or you can make pear apple sauce, which is pretty easy to make. If you are making pear apple sauce, you don't have to peel them. You just have to get them into a pulp, essentially. Whether
through a food processor or a food mill, to break the fibers down into that sauce consistency. Now, with all of those, you do not need a pressure canner. You can do this with a water bath canner, so it's not an essential piece of equipment that you have to have. Water bath is fine and safe for all of these.
Right. So you can definitely do that. You can make a pie, so that's obviously a pretty good...
Now, you can make the pie, and then you can also freeze that pie in its entirety and then pull it out. It's not as great as like it was made this afternoon.
Right.
But it's homemade pie, and you warm it up, and essentially it's just as good. We've done it. Works well. Now, you have to peel for the pie or not?
No, you don't have to.
You might want to, but you don't. It's not necessary. It's
No.
not going to destroy the pie if you don't peel.
Right.
Okay.
If you're not feeling the peeling, you can just...
if you got kids that need to be punished for some reason, that might be something you want them to do.
And you can bake other things with pears and apples.
Right.
There's a lot of different recipes online, apple pie or apple cakes, pear cakes, whatever. So definitely, if you're like, I don't really like pie that much, there's a lot of different things you can make.
We can also make our own pear pie filling. Now, for people who have no idea what that means, Holly, can you explain briefly what a pear pie filling is?
Right. So I'm sure you've seen the pie filling in the cans at the store, and basically you just open up that can, pour it into a pie shell, put your top or whatever you want on top, and then you have a pie, and that's the same thing that you're making in your own home. And you just jar it up, and then when you want a pie, you get your pie crust and open up your jar and pour it in, and you're good to go. So basically, it does take a little bit of extra work because you do have to get what's called clear gel, which is what's going to make that thickness of the pie.
And you want to get the right kind.
Right, and you want to get the cooked type, and you can only buy it online. But once you have that pie filling made, it's really good.
Right, and and that you can pear pie filling, apple pie filling, strawberry pie filling, cherry pie filling, blue. It's not just these two. There's a number of different pie filling recipes in which you can at home, so you're ready to go.
Right, and there's like cinnamon ones. There's different combinations, and people think they're great. So we do it all the time.
Right.
So.
Now, pear chutney, apple chutney, I didn't know what this was until we made it. So I'm sure if I don't know, there's some listeners who are not familiar. Well, what is a chutney?
Chutney is also like a compote. It's basically like a cooked fruit, almost like a salsa, but not a salsa because it's more sweet.
Is it a topping or side?
It's like a topping.
Okay.
So if you're making like a pork or like a ham steak or something, it's a really great topping for that because the sweetness of that pear chutney or the apple chutney is like a good combination with that salty.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We can juice them. You can we juice them. We have a juicer, and we do a process of filtration of it to get the sediment out so it's pure pear juice. There's a process. There's some time that's spent on that. There's a lot of mess that go along with that, at least in our experience. But it's worth it. I think one year we did like 6 gallons of pear juice.
And the nice thing about the pear juice is that if you're canning any type of fruit, or even some jams will call for the use of adding a pear or apple juice. So if you have that pear or apple juice, you can use that then in canning. So if you're canning the whole fruit or something and you need that sugar, that liquid sugar to can it in, you can use juice instead.
And instead of having to buy a processed juice at the store.
Right.
I mean, this is a process because it's going through a heat treatment in the canner.
It's
but you know what's in it. That's the thing. Okay, we can make a pear honey.
Yeah, pear honey.
Okay, we did this once.
Yeah, we did it once, and it was fine.
Yeah, it's called pear honey, and the reason why, you're taking the skins of the pear and cooking it down and adding a tremendous amount of sugar.
Yeah.
It's almost like 50% sugar versus 50% liquid. And it's similar to...
It tastes like regular honey.
Right. But there's a lot of sugar in it.
And it's a bit of work, too.
Yeah. But it is an option. So you can use the whole, pear. You can use the flesh or the meat for the pear pie. You can use the skin for the pear honey. You can use the scraps for pear for fruit scrap vinegar, like we talked about last week on the program. So you're throwing nothing away. Now, jams, jellies, we're all familiar with that.
Right, so you can make apple jam, apple jelly, pear jam, pear jelly.
What's the difference? Do you know the difference between a jam and a jelly?
Sure. So jam is going to have the actual pieces of the fruit in it. Okay. And jelly is more of like a gel.
It's the juice base of the product?
Right.
Okay.
And we have a recipe on, so if you have pear apple juice, we have a recipe on the website called Fruit Juice Jelly. Makes a really good jelly.
Underneath the recipe tab.
And any fruit juice works, really. But if you have, you decide to juice your apples or pears, that's an option. And then I also have another recipe called Apple Lemon Honey Jam. And you could switch out pears for that, too. And that's one of the awards I won at the state fair.
It's on the recipe tab on the right-hand side of the main page?
Sure, probably.
Okay. Or just search for it in the search bar. Yeah. So another way, we can just freeze them. That's an option. If you have a lot of pears or apples, you can freeze them. Can we just put the whole fruit in the freezer?
If you want mushy fruit, yeah.
Okay. So what's the best way to go about doing this?
You're going to want to blanch them.
Okay, blanching, we've talked about this, is simply putting them in a boiling water pot for a period of time based on the item, removing it, putting it in ice water to stop the cooking, and that changes the molecular structure of the fruit or vegetable to allow it to preserve better in the freezer.
Definitely. Yep. Okay. That's exactly what happens. It also prevents the browning, too.
Okay. Take that oxidation that we're familiar with when we leave a item out too long. Pear butter, apple butter, we've talked about that, too. What's the difference there? Is one better than the other, or is it a personal preference?
Between pear and apple butter?
Yeah.
They taste the same to me.
Okay. What's nice about it
what
is a butter? That's what I'm asking. What is a butter versus a jam and a jelly?
So jam and jelly is, I think for one, it has more sugar in it usually. This is where you essentially cook down like applesauce or pear sauce, and then all those
consistency.
All those sugars kind of condensed down. That's already in it. The pear butter that I make, I don't add any sugar to. I just add some cinnamon, and since it's cooking down, all that sugar becomes condensed, the natural sugar in the fruits. So it has a nice sweetness to it.
Now, we came up with a very interesting and worthy tip to pass along. When you're cooking that process down, you can do it on the stove like Grandma did and spend hours and hours and hours of cooking that down to a consistency that's thick enough of your personal preference, and then jar it up or can it up. You can also do it, what we've done is put it in slow cookers.
Yes, so if you put it in the slow cooker, you want to take the lid and vent it somehow. So you either offset the lid or take some pieces of tin foil and
elevate the lid
a little bit. Because what happens in the slow cooker is because that lid is on there, it keeps recycling the moisture that's inside that slow cooker.
Which is what the cooker is supposed to do.
Which is what it's supposed to do. But when you're making the apple butter, you want that moisture to release.
Now, why the slow cooker versus the pot on the stove?
Well, for one, you have less chance of it burning.
Because it's a slow heat.
It's a slow heat, yeah. 2, it makes your house smell amazing, so that's always nice too. And 3, you don't have to babysit it. You can just set it.
You don't have to stir it every 5 minutes and keep it from burning up on the bottom of the
Exactly.
pan. So, and this can do over a couple, an afternoon process.
I think we've done it for like 24 hours.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. But again, there's no right or wrong thickness. It's what you prefer it to be.
So,
at the end, or is there a guideline that we need to follow?
It's to what you prefer, and when you feel the thickness is right. So with that in mind, that if you are choosing to do the slow cooker method, depending on how much water content your pears or apples have, you may want to set this up and keep in mind it's going to be a 24-hour process where it's not going to happen. If you cook it on the stove, it might cook faster. But
there's a bigger chance that you're going to have burnt whatever.
But don't think you're going to do this on Sunday night and then at 5 o'clock, and then all of a sudden it's going to be ready at midnight, because it's probably not what's going to happen.
But it is a great process to use that slow cooker.
Oh, for sure.
And I think we've had 2 going at one time, when we did ours. So apples, pears, that's the time now we're getting them. You can just and if you want to keep them just to eat, you could keep them in most people don't have root cellars anymore, but a basement or a cool temperature. Do you really want to put them in the fridge to try to keep the longevity, or just want to kind of keep them in a cool place for a couple of weeks?
You can keep them in the fridge, or you can keep them in a cool place.
But the longevity is shorter than, not as long as we would like it to be. And that's why we look at the preserving methods in which we just went over.
If you're in the Milwaukee or surrounding areas, just tune your radio to 860 AM or FM 106.5. You can also find links on our Facebook pages, The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener and Home Canning. Our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, click on the radio tab at the top of the page, then click on the Listen Live button, and you'll have immediately access to our live program. Mobile devices work very well also. Go to your app store and download for free the TuneIn app or the Simple Radio app. Then search WNOV 860, save it to your favorites, and you can have access to our radio show live wherever you're at in the world. Our radio program will also have podcast replay under the radio tab several days following the live broadcast. You can find all of these links in the show notes below. Our show airs 9 to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday, March through the end of October. And we want to thank our sponsors, because without them, this would not be anywhere possible. You can find all of their links under the radio tab on our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.